Hello, and welcome back to another video where I explore the worlds of games. Of course, this time we're back looking at Wizard101 with its fourth world in the main questline, Mushu, a world with heavy inspiration with feudal Japan, only with farm animals instead of people. Everything from architecture to environment to ideologies and lore are all very Asian in design. Mostly Japanese, but there are things that have other origins, like the fact that they celebrate Buddhism here. Or, as the cows here call, Moodism, named after the great figure, Muda. Honestly, it kinda works considering India is the birthplace of Buddhism and other religions like Hinduism, which perceive cows as sacred. But I'm no expert on religions or Asian cultures. In fact, I'm pretty brain dead and stupid, so I'm gonna get more into the fictional world of Mushu instead of this real world shit. Mushu is a world deeply enriched with lore spanning centuries and generations. Spanning from the first empire of Mushu with Emperor Suing and the Generation of Peace, to the war amongst the clans of the Khitan and the Manchu empires fighting for the throne of the Jade Palace, and leading to the rise of Emperor Mushu himself, who rose up and led the fight against the warring clans bringing peace to the world. Finally bringing us to modern day Mushu with Emperor Yoshihito at the helm, who is considered one of greatness, establishing a role for Mushu as one of the great empires in the spiral, and himself becoming a key member of the Order of Light. But we'll get deeper into that in a future video. Today we're just going to be looking at Mushu. Mushu's lore is one of my favorites in the game so far. The feudal Japan vibe has always just been cool to me. The creatures and species that live here too are some of the more memorable from the whole game, like the ninja pigs, and goat monks, and of course the samurai. There's a lot more that I haven't even touched, but I think that's enough lore dump for now. Let's get into the current day and the main story. Why is your wizard here? Well, we left off last time in Marleybone where Malastair stole the Croconomicon and had gone off in search of the world of Dragonspire in order to awaken an ancient being for his own personal reasons. However, the only being who has access to the world and has the spiral key is Emperor Yoshihito himself, and when confronted by Malastair, he refused to give it to him. Malastair got a little pissy and put Yoshihito into an eternal coma, and then he dipped. It's not really clear how Malastair got to Dragonspire, because Yoshihito is claimed to have the only key there, but he doesn't give it to him because he got put into sleep. Plus you end up getting it from him later. I guess he already had a way there and wanted to take the key from Yoshihito just so nobody else could stop him, so putting that man in a coma would have the same result, I guess. That's my headcanon at least. So yeah, the mission for the wizard here is to awaken the Emperor from his sleep, so they can retrieve the key to Dragonspire to stop Malastair from doing his shenanigans. And of course the only way to heal the Emperor is by restoring his mind, body, and spirit, each separately gained by completing the three main zones of Mushu and defeating the real evils that are tainting the world, the Oni. Before I get ahead of myself too much, let's talk about the actual layout of the world. Like the other worlds, you enter through a portal chamber. This time it takes the form of an indoor garden area, which leads to the outside commons of Mushu, the Jade Palace. A pretty large area much like the rest of Mushu. The first area you enter here is a little village with houses, all of your typical shops, including a hidden pet shop here that sells children of the residents, in typical Wizard101 fashion. This is also where you can find Zeke, who this time has lost a bunch of blue oysters. A blue oyster cult, actually. This fucking game. And of course the minigame zone, which this time is like a gazebo with tea and incense, which has a pretty cool vibe. Though it's an area most people won't touch because 90% of people don't play minigames. If you continue up the road, you find the true Jade Palace, with a luscious green meadow area with the statue of the great Muda in the center to cap it off. This world would look fucking terrific with a graphic update, but one can only hope. As the case with most worlds, this hub area connects to the three main zones which you must clear to then fight the final boss of the world. The first road you must take leads to the Hamatsu village, a burned village torn from war, and it is here where we may be able to restore his soul, by restoring the village and taking back the Emperor's sword from the warlord Katsumori, who has plunged this part of Mushu into battle. Of course though, you're gonna have to complete a lot of side missions to get to that point, first doing what you can for this village, and then traveling over to the Tatakai outpost to fight the warlord's forces and secure the outpost. These areas have touches of uniqueness, like this one outpost area right here, but for the most part this world shares the same problem that Marleybone shares. But instead of seeing the rooftops over and over again, you have to travel through these bamboo lined roads. and for some reason these roads feel extremely long, even longer than the Marleybone shit. Mushu is giant, but I feel like it's 99% these roads, so get used to seeing this scenery. Anyway, you save Tatakai Outpost by defeating the pig general Dodaga, which then leads you to the first real dungeon of the world, the Crimson Fields. A pretty long dungeon that involves you going back and forth to repair and defend the outpost where the warlord Katsumori has led his forces. You have to fight a few bosses here, and there's also a secret boss here too that may drop some decent loot for the level, but definitely not worth farming. Just blast through this tedious zone and get to the real boss at the end, Katsumori.
You have shown skill to reach me, but this is where your luck runs out.
Who in fact is the first two-phase boss of the game. Once you defeat him in his voluptuous mortal pig form, he shows his true form. He transforms into the War Oni.
I will take you down with force you've never seen before.
All these Oni designs are pretty cool. For some reason they all look like elephants? I guess to fit in with the Helephant concept, which is a very recognizable 6-pip fire spell, which was one of the headliners for the TV ads. I guess in Wizard101, demons are represented by elephants, which is pretty interesting. Don't know what that means for the world of Zafaria, but hey, still a cool concept. Anyway, the War Oni is the first to fall, and because of that, the Emperor's sword is restored along with his spirit. The second third of Mushu takes you to Shoshan Village, a farming village that has had its water corrupted, spreading disease through Mushu by the hands of the Plague Oni. The first area here you must go through is probably the most unique area in the world, the Cave of Solitude. Although most of the area is still covered in bamboo roads, you're not going to get away from that completely, unfortunately. There is a massive cave/ravine type area that is flowing with water and has some good character to it, even having interesting enemies like these krakens slapping their wet purple toes all over these stones. Very cool, very crisp. The purpose here is to gather the pieces of the Jade Scepter, which you need to use to restore the shrines in the next area, Kishibe Village. Kishibe is a village with its one unique set piece being the river that it is located on. This is where the shrines of the mind, body, and soul are located and must be purified with a Jade Scepter and weaken the grasp of the Plague Oni. After doing so, the barrier to the Shirataki Temple is lifted, and you now enter the second dungeon of Mushu, as well as my least favorite dungeon probably in this entire game. Why? Well, it's long, boring, and mind-numbing considering you have to fight 6 different battles and run between 4 different shrines in the map before you can even attempt to fight the 2-phased Plague Oni.
Breaking your spirit will give me more pleasure than breaking your wand.
Which in itself isn't too horrible, unless you consider the fact that a lot of wizards have to come back through here just to fight the Plague Oni again for spells and pet quests, sometimes closer right after you do this thing, so you gotta go through it 2 times back to back pretty much. So yeah, this whole dungeon is just a big old bitch and I hate it. I take pleasure in slaughtering this dookie elephant.
Defeated, Hideyoshi crumples to the ground and fades.
With the destruction of the Plague Oni brings purity to the water of Mushu, and with a vial of it, the mind of the Emperor may be healed. Now the only thing that remains to be cured is his body. In order to do so, you need to acquire a fruit from the Tree of Life, but the tree has been corrupted by another Oni, this time the Oni of Death. The final third of Mushu takes place at Yoshihito Temple, a temple in the middle of a vast lake. In order to defeat the Death Oni, you must first acquire a spirit cage. This of course is found in the first zone of the area, the Ancient Burial Grounds. An underground burial ground with an actual interesting boss fight at the end, which you can only fight alone, and it takes place in a separate dimension. It's just another basic Wraith enemy though, but the battle stage is pretty neat. With the spirit cage, you can now capture an evil spirit, which then allows you to cross the cursed river to the Tree of Life. However, you need to find another evil spirit to capture. Where else but the Village of Sorrow, an area that has an actual kind of fucked up story. This is a dead village full of restless souls that do not know they're dead, and exist in a state of constant sorrow. Yikes. Anyway, there's another Wraith here you can suck up into your cage, allowing you to enter the third and final dungeon of the world, the Tree of Life. This area is pretty unique compared to the other areas. For one, it's kinda dark, a little darker than usual, you know, considering the rest of the world is so bright. And the middle area is kind of a stone maze-like structure surrounding the legendary Tree of Life. However, in order to rejuvenate the tree and pluck one of its fruits, you need to free it from its corruption and enter the tree to defeat the Oni of Death.
Too late. The Tree of Life is already doomed. You cannot stop the tide of darkness.
With his defeat, all that is left to do is bring the Emperor all of these things in hopes it will heal his ailment. his sword, a vial of pure Mushu water, and a fruit from the Tree of Life, all of which are successful in waking him up. However, it doesn't just wake him up, though. The objects also awaken a being that has been slumbering inside the Emperor, and has also grown in power with what you have given him. The Oni is not like the others. No, this Oni is more badass and green. Behold, the Jade Oni.
Fool! Do you think I would give up this shell so easily? I am not like the other Oni. You have woken me only to make me stronger. This land is mine.
The original punching bag for when a wizard got a new spell. He used to be, at least, when he was roided out and had 10k health when he first released. However, over the years he's been nerfed now with a whopping 7500 health instead of 10k. Another interesting thing about this guy is he's the original final boss of the game, before Dragonspire released a little bit later with the true final boss of the arc. This guy is still one of the most famous bosses of the whole game. Many people have farmed him for crown gear, pet drops, or just to fuck him up because he has such a large health pool for being such an early game boss. All I can say though is I think he's cool as fuck, and his design and presence had always stuck out to me as a kid. Well, when you do eventually crush his skull, you save the Emperor and restore Mushu to its former glory, as well as gaining access to the 5th and final world of the original story arc of Wizard101. Nice. So is there any extra areas here? Well, Mushu did get a dungeon from the 4 Dungeons expansion, but it's all the way back in Crocotopia for some reason, which I mentioned back in the Croc video briefly. This is Kambalong Village, the only area that is represented by Mushu's snowy mountain scenery and is home to the Lamb Monks. This dungeon is split up into 2 smaller dungeons, the Pagoda of Harmony and then the Hollow Mountain. The story here is the Marleybonians, of course, need your help. When a diplomatic mission to speak with the Dalai Lama goes wrong, most of the monks become corrupted with evil magic when mysterious music is played, making it so the wizard has to go in and free the captured research team with the help of the Dalai Lama, who has not been corrupted because of his achievement of true harmony. This then leads to the 2nd dungeon, where you are after the one that caused all this nonsense, while also rescuing the leader of the Marleybonian crew. This dungeon is very intriguing, with a few puzzles and memorable boss fights, like one with another elephant demon that is not a demon, and actually a force ghost of good, protecting the underground temple.
Spirit, mind, and body must be in tune and in proper syncopation for harmony to be attained.
Pretty cool, wish we could get some more backstory for this guy. Well, also the final boss is with a warlord warthog named Tonkatsu.
O great and terrible Hamakala, the scourge of Khotan, the sorrow of Hamamitsu, hear my song of discord.
Whose mission is to revive an evil being known as Hamakala and transport his soul into the captured Marleybonian so he can live once more and take over Mushu. This is the first boss fight to introduce a new mechanic of having an outside force that affects the fight every few rounds. In this case, it's the statue possessed by Hamakala. This is one of my favorite dungeons of the 4 Dungeon expansion, mostly because it uses unique sceneries that should have been dealt with more in the actual world of Mushu, instead of every area taking place on a bamboo covered road. Now I know Mushu does shine more in the spin-off MMO Pirate 101, but I do not play that game, and I probably never will. Wizard101 has drained enough time and money from me over the years, I don't need to get into another 101 game. Mushu used to be one of my favorite worlds when I was a little Goblin Jr., and I would constantly have people teleport me there, mostly because it was bright and green, and the ninja pigs from the TV ad always got my attention. The ninja pigs are a dope design, and I used to try and collect all the variant ninja pig pets because, boy are there a lot of them. Mushu truly does have a lot of potential. Unfortunately though, a lot of it hasn't been tapped into, and at the very least needs a graphics update to make it a little less ass to look at. Anyway, that just about does it for this world, and next time I'll be covering the 5th and final world of the first arc of Wizard101, Dragonspire. I hope you guys stay tuned for that, and you guys just have an absolutely nasty night. See you next time, and peace out.